Hello and welcome to a Blood Red podcast special live here across a variety of different platforms for you for one reason and one reason alone. Liverpool boss Jurgen Klopp has signed a 2-year extension at Anfield that will keep him at the club until 2026, not 2024, as was previously the case. And his assistants Pep Lijnders and Peter Krawietz have both done likewise. I'm Matt Addison, and as you'll be able to see if you're watching along with us on video, I've got Ian Doyle, Sean Bradbury and Tom Cavilla all alongside me to react to the news, and we'll get stuck straight into that, Doyle. It's quite possibly the biggest possible good news that could have been announced for Liverpool.
Well, apart from me winning the lottery, yeah. I think Liverpool fans probably didn't see it coming. I'll be honest, neither did I. I thought he may have just called it quits at the end of his current deal, his old deal, which was 2024, wasn't it? And to be fair, he'd done nearly 9 years, and that would have been it. And you know, given what he's done, you couldn't have blamed him. But I do think, reading the quotes from himself, from Mike Gordon, that also from just observing him, certainly this season, it does obviously. Let's be honest, it does have the Liverpool keep on winning all their games, and they're up for the quadruple. And if you're ever going to sign a contract, it's going to be now when they've got that chance of doing something so unprecedented. But his demeanour has changed. He seems a bit more. He seems happier. I mean, compared to obviously last season. I think we spoke to him before the Carabao Cup final, and he was asked the question about, what did you make of last season? You seemed a bit down. He says, well, no, he didn't say this in so many words, but you could tell he didn't enjoy it. And he said by the end he was just exhausted. He said he was done, wasn't he? He said, that's it, done. And it wasn't just him; it was a lot of other people. And as anybody listening to this podcast, the journalists as well, we were quite happy that was all over and done with. So I think this season's, in some ways, in a weird way, it's almost like last season's elongated his Anfield career. And it's not just him. I think there could be a number of players, and not just at Anfield, but elsewhere, who've gone, well, that was a complete wasted season, that. So I fancy sticking around for a little bit longer. And I reckon that's played a part of it. But the main thing is the fact that since then, they bought Konate, they bought Diaz. They're rather hoping that they've got Carvalho on the way as well, and I'm sure they'll be signing some more players in the summer. And it seems to be that even though you look at Michael Edwards, the sporting director, he's on his ways, and he's being replaced by Julian Ward, who notably in both Klopp's quotes and Mike Gordon, he got mentioned in both of those, along with the chief executive Billy Hogan, is that there has been this change at Liverpool, and Klopp mentioned something about freshness. And when you look at it, since he come in, there's been a new stand built at Anfield. There'll be another one. There's a new training ground being built, which they've moved into, and now the last 6, 9, 10 months they've been able to use properly to its full potential, due to the previously the coronavirus restrictions didn't allow for that. And he's made one good team, and now he's in the process. I'm pretty sure he thinks of making another good team. With Luis Diaz, he's another player who's come in. So there's a sense of evolution at Liverpool, and Mike Gordon said that, in terms of continuity, having Jurgen Klopp there is the best person for it. He's the ultimate figurehead for the club. And he also made mention of the fact that he just, he kind of, what the club stands for and, its values, he very much represents them. And that's why ever since he came in, it's, anyone who's seen it knows he's been a perfect fit at Liverpool, not just on the pitch, but off it. He's been, he's galvanised the staff there, he's galvanised the fans, even when they, at the beginning, weren't winning trophies, but they could see the direction the club was going, both on and off the field. And Klopp's a massive part of that. And he's very, he's integral to not just Liverpool, but also FSG's success at Liverpool. I know they're not daft. They see that he's somebody who can do something that nobody else has been able to do. He won the first title, didn't he, in 30 years, the first ever title of the Premier League era, one of the first ever Club World Cup, one of the 6th European Cup, won them a League Cup. In fact, I've lost count how many League Cups. What is it, 8? I think it's 8, isn't it? Yeah. And they'll have they've got a chance of winning another 3 trophies this season as well. So, well, I'm sure we'll get into it, but there could be more ramifications of Klopp putting pen to paper. It's not just him, of course. It's Krawietz and Lijnders. See, I'm learning, Matt. I know how to pronounce his name now. So yeah, that's good, because that, as I said before, that gives them the continuity, and it also gives the players that sense that they know who's going to be there for the next 4 years. And I'd be surprised if they didn't all last for those 4 years. And if Jurgen Klopp does get that far, he'll be the second longest serving post-war manager since after Bill Shankly, because it gets to October this year and he'll go beyond Bob Paisley. And they're 2 massive names in Liverpool's history, and you'd have to say that Jurgen Klopp, the way things are going, in fact, he already is. He's up there with those two.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the future, Sean, and FSG and all of that kind of thing, it just provides so much clarity, doesn't it? An extra 2 years if you're trying to sign players in the summer, if you're trying to get certain players to sign new contracts, it's got to be a lot easier with the fact that Jurgen Klopp is now definitely going to be here until 2026.
Absolutely. I think on the playing side, in terms of the players and the squad, there's so many benefits, aren't there? Like, I think, first of all, as Doyle alluded to, it's this idea that Klopp has got the energy and the drive and the desire and the belief in the newer and younger players to build, his second great Liverpool team. And I think, obviously, every Liverpool fan would hope that quite a few of the guys from the first crop, if you like, will stick around, like Salah, Mane, Firmino, and others. But, how could you not be energized by what Klopp is seeing at the moment and the plans that are being put in place? You watch Luis Diaz for 5 minutes. I think you probably want to sign on for 4 or 5 more years in charge of Liverpool. But, he clearly feels it's within his grasp to keep pushing this squad to new heights over the next few seasons, which is hugely exciting. I think you can extend it further than that, can't you? As Doyle said, this could be a significant first or one of the initial dominoes falling that could lead to further deals and contracts. I think, Salah's been saying for a while, hasn't he, that it's not just about money. There's other situations. He wants to see ambition from the club in a kind of slightly cryptic way. But I don't know at this point what more FSG could do to try and convince these guys that Liverpool is the best place to have one of the most successful careers you can have as a footballer. They've got Diaz in, as Doyle said. There was other signings recently. Kanate is still unbeaten as a Liverpool player, isn't he? Just well, it's just all happening at the moment. And then you've got, for my money, the best manager in the world who feels that he has still got everything he needs, within himself and what he's surrounded by in terms of staff and players to keep pushing. And I think, as Doyle mentioned, we've heard from Klopp and Mike Gordon as well, the FSG president. There were some quotes released by him onto the club website. And there's one bit, let me just find it, where he says, what our latest agreements, as in the Klopp contract, gives us across the organisation is an opportunity to benefit from continuity, particularly in terms of renewals. So, that jumped out to me. If he's mentioning the idea and the prospect of renewals there, obviously given Klopp has just put pen to paper, does this mean others are going to follow? And it feels like there's a confidence that will happen. And, at the very least, there's a confidence that Liverpool can keep on competing. I mean, I'm sure a lot of FO followers and readers will have seen the piece that Doyle wrote earlier today about interest in Tchouaméni and Bellingham and a long-term plan for Liverpool's midfield, which is probably the area where people think does need a bit of fresh blood and extra impetus over the next season or two. And, that's coming. That's all coming down the line. And it's very exciting. And, yeah, Liverpool have just got the perfect man at the helm and for 4 more years, which is brilliant. I just can't stop thinking about, I was at Anfield the other night for the Villarreal game, and there was that banner at the front of the Kop that just said, "These are the days." And, every Liverpool fan, I think, would full well agree with that at the moment. This is as good a time to be a Red as there ever has been. But thankfully, those days might be stretching all the way to 2026 after this news today.
I think it's a real statement, isn't it, Tom? The fact that Liverpool are doing so well at the moment, Jurgen Klopp clearly enjoying himself. He's obviously completely convinced as well that the kind of structure is there for that to continue. This is very much the start for Jurgen Klopp of what might come next. Well,
yeah, it's obviously massive news for Liverpool that Klopp sees himself, committing beyond 2024. Like as Ian was saying earlier, it kind of seemed that he was going to walk away at that point, and everyone was sort of expecting that, I think, at this point. But the fact that he's now decided that he sees, potential to work beyond that to 2026, and it's just such a boost for the club in all aspects, really, even for younger players coming through at the club to be working with Klopp as they develop as well. It's just a positive for everyone, really, this news.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I suppose it kind of leads into the rest of this season as well, Doyle. I mean, in terms of the position Liverpool are in, they couldn't have asked for much more at this point in the campaign. But I suppose this can only sort of help with the confidence and just the sort of feel-good factor around Anfield at the moment.
That's right. I mean, how many games have they got left? 7. And possibility of another one, 8. So there's not that many games. But they're all big ones. And if you can get a little percentage extra out of the players, certainly on obviously we'll deal with it tomorrow in the pod, at Newcastle on Saturday, which isn't going to be easy. That's going to help. I mean, in terms of, I don't necessarily think that's why Klopp signed, although I suspect that might be why they've announced it now, just to get it out there as soon as possible, because a bit of good news. It's not as if they needed the good news. I mean, look what's been happening the last couple of weeks. Well, they beat Man City, Man United, Everton, and now they've got one step in the Champions League final. So, or 1 foot, I should say, in the Champions League final. So it couldn't be going much better, as Sean said. Yeah, I do think that if it can give Liverpool that little bit of an extra boost, that will be a benefit. But I don't necessarily think that they need it. I think interesting point, as Sean said about the renewals. It could be season ticket renewals, Sean. Could be season ticket renewals. There could be some fans who are thinking, I'm not sure whether or not I want to. Oh, I sign. Okay, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. But yeah, obviously Salah's the one. But it's not just Salah, is it? It's Mane, Firmino, Matip. Even James Milner. James Milner, Klopp would love him to still be there. I mean, he said that Klopp said that as long as he's there, he wants James Milner there. So does that mean Milner's got to play until he's about 45 or something? I mean, what's going on? Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, and as Tom said, it's a very good point about the youngsters coming through as well, because Liverpool play a certain way, don't they? And if you go back and go through Matthew knows that you go through the under-23s, under-18s, even lower than that, they all play not necessarily exactly the same way, but there's this kind of an ethos and an approach to the game that the players are kind of molded to play the way that they would be if they were put into the first team, which is why so often you see, not all players are going to make it, but when they do actually come into the first team, they're able to hit the ground running. There's very few who have real teething troubles. They know exactly what they're meant to do because they spent years doing it earlier in their careers at Liverpool, and that's what this continuity brings. That's something that not all clubs have. I mean, that's probably why you look at the likes of Arsenal when they were great under Arsene Wenger, Manchester United under Alex Ferguson. They had that continuity, and that is difficult because to get that continuity, you have to have either been very patient with the manager and the coaching staff, or been winning things straight away. I think with Liverpool, they were very patient at the start, and then they won things at the right time. And I think that's another reason for possibly Klopp signing up, is that he does think, as the others have kind of alluded to, is that he feels as though, this is a team that we are ready to kick on again. They got over last season. You look at this season, it's not finished yet, and without which to be a bit of a downer, there is a chance that they may just end up with just the League Cup. But that's the jeopardy of football, isn't it? You don't expect to win everything, but the fact that they're all in there they're in with the chance in all the competitions still with what date's it? So exactly a month to go in the season, exactly a month left. That's it, and they can still win everything. And they've just had the manager who's very popular and very successful signing a new deal. They've got these big games coming up. That's the kind of position Liverpool are in. And as I kind of suggested before, I do think the FSG have to get some credit for it. I don't see why they can't. I mean, they backed Jurgen Klopp in a way that isn't as much as some supporters would like, certainly when you compare to the money that Chelsea, when they were able to spend, did. Certainly like Manchester United do and Manchester City. So, they're never really going to be able to compete on that level, but they're doing it their own way. And the key to that, as I said before, is Klopp. He's the one that, it'll be so important for Liverpool when they're signing players the next couple of years that these players know that Klopp's still going to be there. Players will be signing on for a few years and going, Klopp, I'm going to get a couple of years under Klopp. It'll be great. He's the kind of manager that, like Guardiola, that players want to play under because they've heard about it. They've seen it on television. They've heard about it, and other players speak, don't they? When other players leave, they always say what a great time they had at Liverpool. There's very few players who've left Liverpool in this Klopp era who've gone off and gone, I didn't like this at all. I mean, you look at somebody like Christian Benteke, who was never going to be able to. He obviously was inherited by Klopp, and he was never going to fit into the system or the way he wanted to play. But he says nice things about Klopp. He's an upfront fellow. I'd like to know what Mamadou Sakho thinks of it all. That would be one. Very much the exception, though. Look at Alberto Moreno. He had 5 years at Liverpool. About, what was it, nearly 4 of them were under Klopp. And for one season, he saw James Milner playing in his position at left back, who's never a left back before. But he still speaks highly of him. So that's a mark of the man and the mark of that kind of character that Mike Gordon was saying, that it's not just, we're not just invested in another couple of years in a football manager, but in an actual man, a human being. And that's I think can't be undervalued at all, or overstated, I should say, at all.
In terms of the sort of structure, Sean, we've always sort of wondered what might happen when you take this sort of big figurehead Jurgen Klopp out of it. Obviously, that's now been delayed by a couple of years, but I suppose it's not just a delay in terms of finding out what that might be. It's also another 2 years to plan for what it might be. It might be in that 2 years that there are further changes and further sort of enhancements that Jurgen Klopp makes. It's kind of cementing his legacy in that way as well, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that was always the concern, wasn't it? As much as Klopp has rightly stressed, even today when he's been talking about his own contract, that this is a huge team effort. Everyone, all his staff and players are involved in it. As much as he's got this outsized personality, he's always sought to play down his own personal role, hasn't he? But he is the beating heart of this football club, and that's why today is such significant news. And I think you're right. The fact that he can be part of the process, or obviously lead the process of overseeing the development of Liverpool into this second phase of his reign, if you like, it kind of works out like that, doesn't it? At the end of this deal, he'll have been there for 11 years, and it's been 6.5 so far. So, it does feel like this is the kind of midpoint of it, but it's just so exciting, isn't it? Just going back to what you were saying about this season particularly, I think it takes the pressure off a little bit now, because this season has already been an incredible ride. And I would say, I was going to say a significant success, but I think that's probably about right. Obviously, you would like to see more silverware added now. Every Liverpool fan and everyone in the dressing room will no doubt think that way. But I just think one thing I had in the back of my mind a little bit was, as much as the whole idea of Liverpool being in the running for a quadruple, as Doyle said, with just 1 month and potentially 8 games of the season to go, is almost unfathomable and is certainly unprecedented. A little bit of me was like, well, realistically, some of these trophies need to be won, because we all know what Man City wanted to do last summer. We know what they're going to try and do this summer, be it Haaland, Kane, or whoever. They're going to go out and buy some goals, aren't they, and be even more of a threat next season. So part of me was thinking, well, this is Liverpool's big chance. And, obviously the squad is great. It's developing. New signings will be even better next season in the case of Diaz and Konate, I would imagine. But you did think, if City rebuild and throw even more money at the squad, and Liverpool maybe don't have as good luck with injuries that they have had certainly in recent months next season, then, it could be a little bit of an opportunity lost. But I think this eases that a fair bit, knowing that Klopp will be around for a good while yet, possibly longer than Guardiola will remain at Man City, which, I think his contract's due up. Is it the end of next season, 2023? So, he might well put pen to paper as well and think, well, I fancy being part of this story for a few years longer. It's just so exciting. I think it suggests as well that Klopp doesn't think that this season is the peak for Liverpool necessarily. And, he certainly sees excitement in what is there to be built over the next few years, which, when you look at what is available to Liverpool over the next few weeks, potentially, if everything goes right, and you've got a manager with a burning desire to keep that going, and who sees the horizon of success much beyond what's happening over the next few weeks, is just brilliant. And, we've got him to thank for putting pen to paper. We've also got his missus to thank. We couldn't do this pod without giving Ulla a little shout out, because reading the quotes from Klopp there, he says that part of this decision was made around the kitchen table with his missus saying, I don't think we can leave in 2024. We've got to go beyond that a little bit. So, yeah, it's just brilliant. A great man who gets the City, gets the football club, and leads it in almost a perfect way.
Absolutely. And I suppose, Tom, from the sort of other angle, from the other Premier League clubs, you think about Manchester United entering a new era, another new manager for them. You think of sort of Chelsea, the uncertainty that they've got. The other Premier League clubs must be looking at Liverpool and, frankly, just being worried and a little bit scared as to how you catch up with them.
Yeah, well, I think as long as Klopp is at Liverpool, obviously it's a problem for all the other teams. It'd be interesting to see, what Man City do, like you said about Guardiola, because, whether he decides to stay longer now as well. But as long as Guardiola's there as well, it's a problem for Liverpool too, in that sense, because they're going to keep providing that competition for Liverpool. So I guess for Liverpool, that I don't know, they will have to hope Guardiola's not around for that long as well, because I think as soon as he goes, Man City will have that problem of trying to replace, a world-class manager and then who they go for. United have obviously got Ten Hag coming in, but that's going to take time to get up to speed with where they need to be. That's going to be job over a few years to fix United and get them back competing. So obviously for the top clubs, it's bad news. For Liverpool, it's probably, we're probably the only team that benefits in that sense, because no one else is going to want Klopp to be sort of sticking around for a number of years. Because, we've just seen the impact he's had at Liverpool, and for as long as he is at Liverpool, then, it can only be bad news for everyone else, really.
I think one of the reasons Klopp signed his deal is because he wants to stick around long enough for us to do a podcast all in the same room. I think that's definitely it.
Yes,
I'm
sure it is.
I'll be writing that in a minute. Yeah,
he might have to sign another extension if that is to be the case, but we shall see. Doyle, just to finish then, of course, 4 more years of Jurgen Klopp, as it is a 2-year extension, 4 more years in all. I suppose it's a fairly ambiguous question, but what's the aim in that time? Is it just to collect the kind of silverware that I suppose a team of this standing deserves to have collected?
I thought for a second you were going to say, "Are you still going to be around to it?" What was the question? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do think me and Sean touched on it just before. I think he quite likes the challenge of creating another team. He's already seen the kind of the start of that with Konate and Diaz, to a lesser extent Jota. Thiago's obviously not that young, but he's somebody who can, the way he plays, he'll be able to play for a few more years yet. So yeah, win more trophies. I think he'll quite like that challenge. I think he'd be disappointed if they don't win a few more big ones, and they could easily win them in the next few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, big news. Jurgen Klopp extending at Liverpool until 2026. If the Reds were to go on and win the quadruple after Klopp has now signed, that could be quite the end to the campaign. Either way, I'm sure it will be regardless over the course of the next month or so. I'm so glad that Jurgen is a Red. I'm sure all of you at home listening too.